Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. I've got the Steven Orr here back again. We're going to talk about the importance of maintaining proper psychology and emotional controls while going about your trades. Steven, glad to have you here, man. How you doing?
I'm good, Philip. How are you, man?
I'm fantastic. Staying busy as always, and I put about 10 pounds on after Thanksgiving. So I went from a medium to an extra large, and I'm currently working on slowing down again.
Well, I think I've done the opposite. I've been on that some diet, so I'm lo I'll give you some of mine. How about that?
Okay, I appreciate that. So, Stephen, earlier in behind the scenes, you were sharing how in the wintertime you love trading commodities, right?
Yeah.
And you were talking about there's certain trends around natural gas. So why don't we kind of, start by introducing to the audience why for you wintertime makes so much sense to trade futures and commodities, and what your advice is in regards to best practices for maintaining stability, right? When one trades live, especially in regards to psychology and emotions.
Yeah, especially when you talk about commodities and futures. I mean, there's two big words when it comes to the winter time with futures, and that's energy and that's planning. And when I say energy, that means one thing, right? Natural gas, because natural gas is needed in the Northeast. Oil obviously is a big deal right now. Saudi Arabia is making decisions with the OPEC, although they don't have as much power as they used to in making decisions on the price. But we are seeing a lot more pumping, and of course, political right now with drill baby drill. On the other side of that is planning, right? That's when farmers plan for their wheat, their winter wheat and corn and soybeans and live cattle and all of the things that go into the future with that spring planting. That's when you start to plan right now. And right now, I'm telling you right now, there was a couple of things going on right now. We'll start with energy. A few weeks ago, I used my own software, Quasar Markets, and look what we found out. We found out that the weather was going to change. You've had a pretty good weather up there in the last few months. And I noticed one thing in my AI was that the weather was starting to change a bit and it was going to get colder. And guess what? I like to buy when the weather gets colder, natural gas. There was a glutton of nat gas on the in the markets, and that nat gas hadn't burnt off yet. And because of that, the price had slipped below $3 per thousand cubic feet. And when that happens, $3 is usually pretty low. And you saw things like oil and natural gas, UNG, started to slip. And when you started to see those things right there, that tells me that NG itself needed to be bought, especially for the future, right? Because now we know we saw that weather patterns coming through, and when those weather patterns came through, they turned cold. And when they turned cold, well, that wasn't enough to get the traders excited. And that means to me, right, what we're talking about was the psychology of trading. And when I'm saying this, look, did not get excited that the weather's turning cold. Make a very calculated play. And I did. I bought the December contracts of NG, and of course, we all know what happened, and I sold them off this morning. So, what I was looking for was a news article or something to break in the weather to say, look, actually, the weather's going to stay cold and stay colder and for longer. And those three things for me changed the tune of nat gas, and it got the traders all excited. Didn't get me excited because I was already in it, and that's why the difference of psychology makes you a much better trader. Now, look, there are some things, some themes in the markets right now. We've heard about this for a long time now, which is like Manjaro and Zepbound. People are eating less, right? They're taking the shots. Guess what? That affects live cattle prices. And so, guess what? Protein prices have gone sky high. Cattle prices are way up. What's wrong with that? Well, we're also seeing news articles in the UK saying we're having a hard time getting steak. Do you know steak prices are at the all-time high in the UK right now? That's crazy, right? And guess who's got to supply that? Australia and the United States. And Australia's having a heat wave right now, and that heat wave is affecting cattle prices. So all of those things are affecting it, not getting the trader excited. That's the key. Making very decisive, very calculated and very understanding of the markets, and you'll be winning trades all the time. And it's consistency. Look, I get it. If you cannot in your heart handle losses, you'll be a terrible trader. You've got to accept them. You've got to write them and put them on your wall and say, man, look what I did. I made a mistake here, and understand and learn from that. But don't get excited. Don't go, I'll never do this again. I think you asked me earlier about how do I control my emotions. But I was jokingly say I punch a wall. I've never done that, right? I know that if I continually make consistent trades, good or bad, eventually I'll win more than I'll lose. And of course, that's happened over 33 years of trading. Now, when I look at it now and going in the future, I think you asked me about that right now. Very simple. Natural gas has been the winner. But when I look at the derivatives of natural gas, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at contango. I'm looking at backwardation. I'm going to look at forward thinking with this, because why? Contango's telling me right now that, well, we are burning nat gas off. The prices are going to start to move up a little bit. There is that forward curve. How steep is that curve? And it's not very steep right now. I'll tell you what is steep right now is jet fuel. We're seeing a huge movement in oil prices because more people are going on holidays, right? We're seeing this spin. We're calling it doom spending right now, and people are spending more money going away. We're probably going to see the biggest holiday movement of people in history of this year. Why? And you're seeing big sales in Amazon. Guess what? They have trucks to move things around. So guess what? Oil is moving up. When I look at that, I'm looking at also the SPR, but I'm not getting excited. So the psychology of that says, okay, I know all the different pieces around this. I'm going to make a decision. Well, I think that in the future, I think oil is going to go actually down, because right now we already know these factors. We already know that travel's high. We already know that the SPR is going to be filled up. We have a new administration who says what? Drill, baby, drill. Okay, great. You're going to have more oil on the markets. You're not going to be filling up the SPR anymore. You're going to have Saudi Arabia all nervous. And so all of a sudden, you're going to see the prices start to slip a bit. And I think we probably slip down to about $65 a barrel, somewhere around there. We know that oil companies need 65 to 75 to feel comfortable. At 78, they're happy. At 80 to 100, they're very unhappy because they know it's going to crash at some point, and they usually lose. So that psychology of understanding the themes, understanding technical analysis, where we are now, where we're going to go to, and what levels we can see the buyers and sellers at, will make you a much better trader. And that takes the emotion completely out of the situation. And I love that. I think one of the things you guys were talking about earlier, we talked about this, was Tesla. You guys
Yep.
killed it in the options market, right?
Yeah, we sent Tesla went up 6,000% on Friday, and we were lucky to catch it as a firm. So
But you didn't just catch it. You saw it. You understood the play. You made a decision. You didn't get excited about it, and you made that play the call side of it, right? That's exciting to me, right? You did it because Elon Musk. You did it because of political issues. You did it because the driving that would have these taxis made by Tesla. Oh my goodness! You know, you're seeing now cool things happening. Here's a good example of that. Google. Google was a good example. It's been beaten up as a stock for a long time, and all of a sudden they come out with an AI chip that is 10 million times faster than another AI quantum computing chip. That's called Willow. That all of a sudden has sent Google on the biggest tear in 2 days in the history of Google. Right? What to Google, right? Because of the news, but it didn't get excited. I bought my calls and I got out of it as soon as Willow came out. I was excited. Thank you very much. I understand that play. Didn't get excited about it and took
right.
that profit, right?
Yeah.
You saw, in this case, WBA, Walgreens Boots Alliance. You saw where all of a sudden there's a talk of being a buyout, right? Boom, those calls took off. No excitement. Take the profit and ran right after the halt came off. Some people are chasing it. Bad, bad, bad. We don't chase. That's the emotion side of it. You make decisions based on what you know, based on better quality data, better news,
Right.
better fundamental data. See that chart, watch those fundamentals, watch those technical analysis, and you'll be a much better
Gotcha.
trader.
So really, like what Steven is hammering home here is like, in order to correctly remove emotions, it's really how robust is your knowledge base and your understanding of how interconnected things are. And the more understanding that you have, then the more it removes emotions, because you're, pretty much like, yeah, this is going to take off in this direction because you have the ability to justify it with facts, right? And of course, with stock options, it's always healthy to own, or be immersed in the thing that you're buying. So Tesla for us as well, because that is one of our company cars at the firm. So we're naturally consumers of Tesla, right? So we like to be in the loop of things with
I
regards to
always say
that
the
brand,
same thing. That's
right?
exactly right, Philip. When you are, people ask me all the time, what makes a good trader? And I say, you do. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, you need to trade what you know. If
Right.
you are an owner of Tesla, you understand it. You're
That's right.
following Elon Musk. You know where the price of the stock's going to go. If you're a plumber, trade housing stocks.
That's right.
If you are a plumber, do not be trading biotech stocks. That will also remove the emotion. Why? Because
Yeah.
when you don't understand the position you're in, you don't understand the company that you're buying, you don't understand the future or the commodity that you're trading, you're going to
Mhm.
have a much harder problem, right? If you want to trade corn and you're a farmer, why? Because you're a farmer. You know where prices are going. You know whether or not the fields are going to produce. You know whether or not there's going to be a drought. That
Right.
is, I'm gonna tell you right now, you want to take the emotion out of it? I do it all. I used to do it all the time. You want to know about corn prices? Go walk into a cornfield. Do it yourself. Go in there and say, look, okay, pull down a corn, don't do a bunch of them, but pull down a corn cob, open it up and go, wow, look at the yield on this. This is great. There's a whole fields of it, right? There's no drought coming in. There's no over rust, which is, corn can get rust, or corn can be over drenched with water, or the yield isn't very high. Those things, hey, look, supply and demand, it's still the same thing. We still understand it. Where there's supply and where there's demand, is there a lot more demand than there's supply? Price
Mhm.
goes up. It's not that hard to understand. But when you're looking at it from the perspective of commodities, understand that you are putting down a small margin for a much larger picture, right? So your losses and your gains are a little more outsized. So, I always say when you're eating that turkey from Thanksgiving and a piece of pie, make sure that your eyes aren't bigger than your stomach. Make sure that when you are making those decisions of how many futures you're going to buy, how many options in this case sometimes, or how many how big is your initial margin and your maintenance margin
Yeah.
and your margins in general, you need to know those numbers almost off the top of your head. If you're trading a certain commodity or a certain future, you need to know maintenance initial margins almost immediately. You need to be able to know how many points a dollar is, or this thing moves a penny. How many points does that equate? If you can't rattle that off in your head, that's going to add to that heartburn inside of you. That's going to add to that emotional trading. You don't want that. I want you to be able to say to me, $30 a point on a bond, right? I want you to
Mhm.
tell me exactly how much a mini NASDAQ on the E-minis, what is that point? You need to know that almost, it should come out of your mouth almost easy, and that'll make you a much better trader because you've taken the emotion out of it. You know what your trade is. You know what your thesis is going higher.
Yeah.
Great. But then you understand your trade and you understand the size of your trade. And I always say the same thing. It's one of my rules of trading, right? If a position makes you nervous, you're too heavy.
Yep. That's right. I love it. Now, question that kind of came up for me as you were talking here is, you talked about, hey, I've done this before. Why don't you walk into a cornfield, right? This is back in the day when you were getting mentored.
Yeah.
And that's great advice. Now we are very digitally immersed now today, right? So what would you say to the audience listening in to be the equivalent of checking on the cornfield itself for the quality of the yield? But if you can't do it physically, how do you find that information digitally and be immersed in that regards?
Never in the history of our world do we have so much access to so much data and so much knowledge. Look,
Right,
if you
but the pitfall could be misinformation because it's too much information.
so
So
what is
how do you identify the right one? That's really the
Yeah, you're totally
question.
right.
Yeah.
I look at government data
Okay.
for when it comes to commodities. We look at WASDE reports, right? World Ag reports. I want to know supply and demand of those reports. I do have an AI piece to my software, Quasar
Mhm.
Markets, that analyzes all the WASDE reports.
Yeah.
I analyze Google Trends. It's one of the things that I I did. I have Google Trends within the system, and I analyzed that in the AI. That's how I found out that cocoa was about to have a big rainfall. That cocoa
Fascinating.
prices. Look at cocoa prices now, right? These are the things you need to understand. If you understand what affects commodities, then you'll understand why the news is so important. The news is not, oh, a stock is getting a big buyback. Okay, well that's great, but well, how many shares are outstanding? You need to know
Mhm.
all the things around it. You need to make sure that your data is quality, and that's a problem, right? There's a lot of data out there that's not real. These here from Twitter or places like that that may not be right. I want to know from exact standpoint of exactly what it is I'm investing in, how I'm investing in it, and thinking about the future. And I want to make sure that my data is correct. So I do have an AI piece that makes it filters that out, making sure that
Right.
everything is correct. But you know what? Those are the kind of things that you need to have. Now, but I still say there's nothing better than going into a cornfield and slapping a cow in the butt and saying, "Hey, I know how good that cow is, giving us freaking milk." And is that a feeder cattle? And is it so cold? Are the cows eating more? Guess what they're going to be eating? Grain. Are they going to be eating corn? Are they corn fed? Are they grass fed? What kind of cow is it? What kind of production are they getting? We just saw hurricanes come through South Florida. Guess what? That destroyed the orange juice crop, right? Because a lot of the oranges are knocked on the ground. They went dead, and because of that shot the price of OJ up. Look at Arabica coffee, all-time highs, right?
Mhm.
People are drinking coffee at the all-time highs right now, and you're seeing in this case Starbucks. You're watching Starbucks, but guess what? There was a problem down there in the Arabica fields, and guess what? Prices went higher. That news came out months before the coffee prices went higher. So these are little pieces that you need to keep your eye on. But I don't tell people trade everything. I do because I have 33 years at it. But I always tell people, look, find the one thing that you're good at, know what you're good
That's
at,
right.
and trade that. Trade what you know. It's one of my rules, right? If you stick to those rules, you'll be okay. And that'll also lower the temperature of your heart rate and
Mhm.
your psychology. You'll have a better grasp of it. Don't go
Right.
trading things you don't know.
So in that regards, when you say government data and Google Trends, first question is, what do you mean by Google Trends? Because that's like a very broad. So do you mind,
Sure. Google Trends is an actual program that Google puts out, and
Mhm.
it's okay. Here's what these countries are saying. These are the top things that are being searched. Well, why are people searching about this, and why are they searching that keyword? Because they want to know. They probably saw it somewhere. Maybe the news, maybe not the news. Maybe they saw it on Twitter. They saw it, but they want to understand. And you know what? If millions of people are searching the same thing, millions of people are also investing in the same thing, and you want to be on the same way that they're investing. You don't want to be going against the grain, right? I mean, I'm watching the news right now, right? And I'm seeing that uranium is really big, right? We know that. Guess what? Uranium prices are going higher. It's very simple. You have a new administration that's looking for alternative energy, and they're also looking for oil. So prices, I think there's a lot of cool data points, and Google Trends catches that first. So make sure you're using Google Trends, and then I take Google Trends and I put that into the AI. And then when I
So do
find
you,
those nuggets,
yeah, do you search Google Trends? Is that how you just basically, I
it's
mean,
automatic. In our software, it automatically comes to you in every country, 4 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours. I know what's popular, and that's one of the cool things about our software.
love that. The other, thing that I personally was curious about is, because you said Google Trends and then the government data, right? And this might be, I think, like maybe a rhetorical question, but I got to ask it. Why are government data so reliable for you? What is it specifically about government data that makes you go, that is the bona fide, cream of the crop, top of the line resource that I know will not be falsified?
They're not always right. I mean, they make changes every month, right? And that's okay. But the thing is but that news comes out at the same time for everybody every single time. You look at CPI data, right? Everybody got that data this morning up 0.3%. That's in line. Guess what? That also filters all the way down to rates are going to come down again. We know what's going to happen. That helps. And guess what? Bitcoin goes to 102,000. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for government data that says, okay, this is confirming your thesis. My thesis is that then interest rates are going to continue to fall. Fiat currency is not going to continue. Look, if I'm getting really really cool about it, Indian rupees against the dollar is at an all-time low, right?
Mhm.
Russian rubles all-time low against the dollar. The dollar is strong right now. When things are strong like that and it gets too strong, I go, maybe we're a little bit out of whack. My emotions are out of it. I think the dollar will come back down and we're going to correct. And maybe the euro comes back up, but I think the pound will actually outperform the euro, right? So maybe short the euro, go long the pound, and all of a sudden I've now got a trade based on CPI data, inflation's going down, rates are coming down, and now I've got a thesis, and now I've got a trade. And the
Awesome.
emotion is completely out of the trade, right? That's exactly
Love it.
what your point is,
Yeah.
right? Is how do I get the emotion out of it? It's not to control your emotions. You've got to do that anyway. You'll learn to control your emotions, but it helps to control your emotions if you feel better about the position that you're in.
Well,
When you
yeah, I would say,
uh,
from the knowledge is, having an increased confidence in your action, confidence, certainty, and conviction, which leads to less anxiety.
that's
That's
right.
really, I think, like the main point that you're trying to drive home.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
100%.
Love it. Love it. Now, in regards to, I'm just kind of curious, and maybe we can, finish and conclude on this discussion. When you have Google Trends as well as the government data coming at you, how do you sort, sift, and filter for the data that is relevant? Because again, we talked about a potential I would say disadvantage of being in the digital world nowadays is that there's too much information,
Sure.
and alongside that is misinformation. So now that you have the right source, how do you still deal with, two encyclopedias, right? Like, and not, be overwhelmed and just go, okay, here's what I just need to look for. Here's what I need to look for here, and then I can make my trading decisions, right?
Yeah, one thing that I saw in the news not too long ago, Google Trends, was that we expect yields of corn and soybeans to go up, and we saw that the farmers themselves are having a problem in the fields right now because their equipment are older. Okay, what does that mean? John Deere, that's where they got to go buy their equipment, right? That's exactly what I mean by it, right? I know that the data for that's good. I know the news is good with that, and I need to figure it out from a perspective of how to invest, right? So that data coming into me from the news is saying people are searching for companies like John Deere.
Mm,
They are looking at the news from, okay, we know that there's going to be problems. We know the farmers are breaking down some of their equipment. We know that yields are going to go higher because we're watching WASDE reports. These things are coming together. They're going to create a perfect storm. Great.
mm.
And guess where that
Okay.
and who's sitting at the crossroads of that? And that's John Deere. And I was like, okay, that's why I invested in John Deere. I bought long dated calls in
Uh-huh.
DE.
So here's the thing. I'm kind of wondering, it's like the chicken and the egg analogy. For you, when you trade, does the data come first and then the trading decision? Or do you approach the data with certain, because we talked about like the reasons why our firm trade Tesla is because, we have a company car, right? Things of that nature. So do you
Right.
go in with a preconceived array of companies or markets, and then you're like, here's what I'm thinking about trading. Let me go find the data that corresponds, or do you just, do you go blank data first and then you go, okay, well, from the data, here's the companies that I like, here's the markets I generally like. So, which if you had to go like in terms of like a priority step, what comes first?
I'll tell you one thing, as a trader, you need to understand every single symbol that's out there, whether that's options, whether that's stock, whether that's futures. Understand every bit of it. You should be able to yell out a stock symbol to me, and I know the name of that company. I've been doing that for years. I shouldn't have to go back and go look it up and see who that is. But for me, I'm waiting to give me some more hard evidence of things. I want to know what's going on in the world before I make decisions. I don't just willy-nilly decide things. I have an idea. Okay, you know what? The weather's kind of warm right now. It's going to be winter. There's my thought process. Okay, but I need to make sure that I'm right. So how do I do that? Now I'm going to go back and find the data, go make sure that I'm correct, and then okay, you know what? The weatherman says it's going to be warm, but I know winter's coming. I feel like I know that line. And okay, well, if that's case and the price of natural gas is down under 3, we know that's a good price because why? Because we saw the technical analysis of it. All right. The very second that a weather report came out that says, oh, guess what? The weather's gonna be colder than we thought. It's gonna stay cold up north. They're gonna burn more nat gas. All of a sudden, nat gas prices explode. And then the FOMO hits, and then all the traders get excited. By that point, I've said this a lot of times, Philip, to you. I want to be the ticker taker. I always say this all the time. I want to be the person that's first in, and I want to be the first one out, right?
Mm,
I want to know what's happening before it happens, and as the traders are rushing to get out, thank you,
got it.
thank you, thank you, right?
Right. Right. So in this case with natural gas, it wasn't like you were gung ho on natural gas and then you try to, use data to confirm. You had an open mind specifically about trends alongside weather movements. And so with the hypothesis or the thesis that you formed, you went to look at how the data matches with your thesis. Yes. And then from there, you executed on an actionable trade according to what backed up or what did not back up your thesis.
That's right.
Okay.
100%. You nailed it.
So if I had to go one, two, three, it would be thesis, data validation, actual trades.
100%.
Awesome. Love it. I'm always learning from you, man. This is great. Thank you so much. And, Steven, I know we're coming on time here, so I'm excited to reconvene with you again after the holidays, right before your big international trips. And so with that, Merry Christmas to you and your family. And it was great having you on. Now, Stephen, for the audience listening, maybe if this is the first time, I don't know how, even though we've done probably like 100 episodes at this point, right? Together, what is the best way, if they wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about, the Quasar Markets platform that you have created?
That's it, man. QuasarMarkets.com. And I'm Steven at Quasar Markets. I don't hide that. Look, we're exploding. We've won more awards. I think Finance Feeds gave us 2 more awards, and we won another one at Benzinga for AI Research Platform of the Year. So it's exciting, the growth here. And come see me. Come see what we're doing. We're doing.
Absolutely. Steven will be speaking in Tokyo and then Switzerland. So if you want to catch an international flight and hang out with Steven, that is the best way, right?
All right, come hang out with me. I love it. All right.
All righty. You have a great day, and I'll talk to you after the holidays.
Bye, Philip.